Okay, let's dive in here. So today we are talking about setting the expectation to build our client experience. Forgive me just a second. I'm trying to get my computer behaving just a little better. It's been kind of on the fritz today. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. All right. Can you guys see the screen okay? Give me a thumbs up if y'all can. Awesome. 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 Perfect. There we go. All right, so Jana just had a great question. If there's going to be a handout, I encourage you guys to grab pen and paper and take notes where you can. When they send out the recording on this, we can make sure that you get the slide deck as well, so that you have kind of a reminder of what we went through. But this is a kind of a continuation of the customer experience conversation that we've been having over the course of the past, few weeks. And here's a kind of a quick representation of what your system can look like when it's all built out, right? The customer experience can be broken down into 5 S's, or 5 steps of the experience, right? So you're going to start by setting the expectations. That's where we are today. We're going to be setting the expectations and serve the client, right? So we're going to tell them what to expect, and then we're going to deliver what we told them to expect. The third step, and we're going to get into this next week, is going to be to survey their experience, get their feedback, right? The fourth S is to surpass, exceed their expectations, right? Deliver more than you told them to expect, and do that purposefully, right? Don't just accidentally outperform their expectations, but definitely under promise and over deliver, and do that very strategically and specifically, because that will allow you to, number 5, sustain the relationship, which will increase repeat and referral business. Now, when you're building a service experience inside of your business, what this really is a system, right? This is a system inside of your business of standards and expectations that are duplicable. Okay. And over time, as your business grows and you start inviting others to do business with you and creating maybe a team environment, right? What they're going to do is duplicate your systems, right? They're going to execute your systems so that they can hit those same standards with your clients, because that's what your clients are looking for. That's what's going to wow them inside of the transaction. So often when we start working with buyers and sellers, we just default into whatever happens next in the transaction, right? As opposed to having a plan for how that looks, right? It's what's a great example of this? It's the difference between quick service dining, right? Imagine going to Chipotle. And you go in, this is back when, we used to go in places. I don't know, some of us still do, right? We go in, got our mask on. We go into Chipotle and we stand in line, and then we get to the counter and we tell them what we want as we go, right? So we're the customer and we're lining up what we want. We get to the register, we pay, we take our food, and let's say we're going to eat there. Then we have to find our own table. What if there's not one available? What if it's available, but it's not clean, right? So we're just defaulting into whatever happens next in the transaction, right? I like my burrito bowls done a certain way, but you know what? The meat comes first in the order. And in my life, I want the veggies on the bottom, not the meat, right? So they build my bowl differently than I would build it in my life. And that's okay, because that's the experience they're giving me. So I'm just going to default to it. Versus sitting down. We recently went to the Melting Pot for our anniversary, and it's like cheesy chain corporate. But we go there with my in-laws, my brother and sister-in-law, who have a similar anniversary every year, right? Completely different experience. We didn't have to wonder about where we were going to sit. In fact, we requested a table that we really like there. We were able to get that. You know, it was an entire experience. Instead of us walking through an assembly line process, it was catered to us, and every step is really well thought out so that you're having that experience, right? You know, they know that you're going to be cooking your own food, so they actually bring you, you know, hot cooking fluid instead of, you know, you having to sit there and wait for 20 minutes for your broth to boil, or whatever the case is, right? So it's a whole different kind of experience, and they set the expectation when you get there, and that's the piece that we're going to cover today, right? When you walk into a restaurant like that, what's the first question that they ask you when you sit down, right? Have you dined with us before? And they're asking that question because dining with them is different. It's different than going to Chipotle, right? It's different than even sitting down and having a steak dinner somewhere, right? Your experience is going to be different. So have you dined with us before? And if you haven't, let me share with you what to expect during your dining experience. And it's not all awesome stuff, right? They're telling you things like, don't put the fork that had the raw chicken in it in your mouth, right? Obvious. And yet at the same time, they've got to forewarn us that bad things have happened when people have done that in the past. So I'm going to set the expectation that we don't do that, right? If they didn't tell you that, and let's say you didn't know, and then you got sick because you gave yourself food poisoning by eating off of the raw chicken fork, right? Then you would think poorly of that experience. I'm going through this just assuming you guys have all cooked your own food for a large price tag at the Melting Pot, right? If you haven't, I assure you, it's a good time and it's quite the experience. You should probably go do that. At any rate, so they're setting that expectation when you get there, even if it's not always what you want to hear, it's what you need to expect. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And setting those expectations up front can truly save the deal, because sometimes it's just those simple miscommunications or really misunderstandings about what to expect that cause a client to become dissatisfied. Right? So let's talk about this. How does this happen? How do we set the expectation, right? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to share with our clients what is our value proposition, right? Even if we don't have something fancy, at the end of the day, what are you going to get when you work with me, right? And then what are your expectations? So imagine going on a listing appointment, right? And this is going to be during that appointment. You're going to share with the sellers, right? What is your value proposition? When you list with me, we'll get your home sold in less time for more money with fewer hassles, right? Whatever that is that you've boiled your business down to. And then set the expectations. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, in order to do that, here's what it's going to look like, right? Here's how you'll prepare your home. Here's what showings will look like, right? Here's what our communication will look like. Here's what will happen when we receive an offer. And then here's what will happen as we move from contract to close. Right? We're gonna spell out what they can expect at every stage during the transaction. We don't just show up, win the listing, and leave them in the lurch about when the photographer is going to get there, how to approve showings, what to expect. Right? We need to set the stage for all of those pieces. That's when we get to listen to our customer and hear what their expectations are. Right? Have they had previous real estate experiences? What went well? What didn't go so well? Right? Here's what I said would be the cadence of our communication. Does that work for you? Do you think you'd like to hear from me more or less often? Would you prefer text messages or phone calls? Right? Make sure that there is some agreement inside of that, and we're gonna dive into that a little more. Seeking agreement to set those mutual expectations. At the end, you're going to agree on the way that you're going to do business together. That agreement doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to amend your systems to meet every client, but you are going to find a win-win, a common ground where your expectations are set in a manner in which they are deliverable. So let's dive in to the first piece. Present your value proposition, right? So customers want a peace of mind, right? They want to know that the service they're potentially hiring you to provide for them will result satisfactorily, and that they won't have to worry anymore. Right? That's the reason they're hiring someone to begin with, is because they're not an expert in this and we are, right? So here's some ways that you can present your value proposition, things to keep in mind as you're getting started in this point of your consultation with your buyer or seller, right? You might want to share your personal track record or some client or third-party testimonials, right? Reviews are an incredible, and reviews and testimonials. People trust the opinion of other people more than they're going to trust what you say about yourself, right? If you're new or newer in the business, you can leverage some of that. You can leverage the experience, the reviews, the testimonials of your team or of your office. You can even leverage past experience. So if you have past professional experience that may not be directly working with buyers and sellers, can you leverage that as your professional experience, right? Can it be even generic, right? Like, working with Anna was awesome. She's an incredible communicator and we always knew what to expect. They don't have to, that testimonial doesn't have to be necessarily specific to a real estate transaction. It can just be a professional testimonial. Offer service guarantees. There's a lot of different ways to do this. One of the best, especially if you're about to have a contractual conversation, right? If you're sitting down with a seller as the listing agent and you're going to ask them to sign the listing agreement tonight, right? Is to let them know that although the contract is written with a contractually obligated date, you can add a clause and additional provisions if you'd like, or just point out the language in the contract that allows them to terminate for any reason at any time with written notice, right? And the way that I like to approach this is by letting them know that I'm so confident in the experience that I'll be able to deliver while you're, working to purchase your new home, or while we're working to sell your house and get you moved. That experience in itself will earn the right to do business with you. I don't need to tie you in contractually to doing business with me. And for, if at any time, for any reason, you're dissatisfied with the service that we're performing, will either make it right immediately or allow you to work with a professional who will get the job done in a way we can't. Right. And so being able to offer that service guarantee, some agents, and, talk to, I think everybody here's from our office. Yeah. Talk to Donna if you're ever going to do something like this. But some agents will offer either commission guarantees or even home sale guarantees, right? If we can't sell your home in 6 weeks, we'll buy it ourselves, right? With lots of asterisks after that and a few caveats in there, right? You know, if we price the home based on my professional opinion and the home doesn't sell at that price, I will reduce my commission by X% if we have to do a price reduction, right? So some agents do go so far as to provide those types of service guarantees. I would say definitely make sure that you check with Donna before you move forward with something like that. But there are some options inside of there. So as you're presenting your value proposition, remind your clients that what they're hiring you to be is their agent. And as your agent, you're going to act with the highest level of fiduciary responsibility, right? That's what our license requires, but ethically, that's what's best for that relationship with the client, right? And so you can share with them what is the difference between a fiduciary and a functionary. This is incredibly powerful if they're looking at possibly a discount brokerage or like an e-brokerage like Open Door or Zillow, who's going to just come in and, you know, purchase that home directly from them. Okay. Functionaries tell and sell, while a fiduciary serves, educates, and guides the client, right? So a much higher level there. Functionaries respond to the needs of their customers, but a fiduciary anticipates the needs of their customers. And the system that you develop during the transaction cycle should be designed to anticipate the needs of your clients, right? Like what's going to be coming next, always forward thinking. The functionary assumes little responsibility, right? And the fiduciary accepts high responsibility, right? There's a different language in that, right? If I'm a functionary and I'm talking to the seller, I might say something like, when your home sells, right? As opposed to when we sell your home, as a functionary, because we're in this together and I'm sharing that responsibility with you. The functionary completes the task, yet the fiduciary owns the result. The functionary delivers information. Well, that fiduciary will advise and consult. Right? Here's my recommendation. That functionary will meet the expectation and the fiduciary exceeds them. A functionary is definitely replaceable, whereas that fiduciary becomes irreplaceable inside of that transaction and inside of that relationship. Which all makes sense, right? Because that functionary is a lower paid transactional agent, right? You might think of the terms, you know, discount or turn and burn, right? Whereas the higher that level of fiduciary, the higher the risk, the higher responsibility, the higher the financial reward. So let me make sure that you guys can hear this. There we go. This is another awesome video from the Hear It Direct series. This Realtor Association actually invited real buyers and sellers to answer questions from real estate agents about what happened inside of their transactions, to get feedback on what real buyers and sellers want, and not just what we think they want. So this is a phenomenal clip of some real buyers talking about what their real estate transactions look like.
You said that you had a bad experience. What made it a bad experience?
I gave her criterias of what we were looking for, and one in particular, and this is no offense to this type of house, but we did not want a ranch style home. The long, skinny ranch style home. That's completely not what we would wanted. And time again, she would send us 10 or 12 listings that were all ranch. And it was like, are you not listening? It was very frustrating. But I guess next time I just would like the realtor to actually listen to what we want.
She was showing me houses. I specifically said, I don't want this Victorian style home. I don't like it. Don't even show me houses like that. Mm-hmm. We pull up to the house. It's a Victorian house.
If we explain to you what we're looking for, and for some reason we might be missing some towns, and you make a suggestion, say, hey, that town is similar to this town. Why don't we take a look over here? Maybe there might be something you like. Also, it could be that we like a certain type of home. We may like colonial. If I'm looking at a town that has a lot of Victorians, then you might want to explain to me, more Victorians than colonials. You might say, well, this town may not be a great town for you because the inventory of what you're looking for isn't there, but this town might have it. So it's your knowledge of the areas you're working, or maybe you might go out of your way to research a town that might have what I want.
Did you ever go to her office and sit down with her and tell her what you were looking for?
Yeah, we sat and we talked with her. When I told her, this is the type of home I want, and this is what I want to pay for it, this is what I don't want to go over. I think that's what she should have showed me, and not homes that were $300,000-$400,000 over what I was asking her to be seen. Her reasoning was, I've done this for years and years and years, and I know what you guys want, I know what you guys need, and you guys are not going to be happy in a place like this. She did really great at being my friend. She did really poor at being an agent.
Like, what should she have done?
She should have listened to me.
So what is your process for getting to know them, right? Buyers and sellers are people after all, right? And a coach and a mentor of mine, and the former president of KW Maps Coaching, mega agent, all of those things, Miss Diana Kokoska, used to say, everybody is walking around with a sign around their neck, right? It's your job to read that sign. And that sign says, make me feel important, right? Everybody wants to feel important. And especially when they're going through such an important transaction, right, in their life, and they've hired a professional to walk them through it, we really do need to be listening to what they say, and actively being able to listen. So let's talk about that a little bit, because that's the biggest piece here, right? After we've presented our value proposition, we're needing to listen to our customers. And one of the best ways to do that is to incorporate a needs analysis into your presentations, right? And so that needs analysis is just simply a series of questions that walks you through what's really important to the buyer and the seller. Inside of your listing presentation, that needs analysis may look like a series of questions around, why is their move important, right? Why are you choosing to sell right now? What's important to you about that? Right? Are they relocating? Is it for work? Have they outgrown their property? Is it a financial piece, right? Is it a preference piece, right? Well, we have a choice. We can either, remodel or sell, and, we're weighing our options. Like what's really the motivating factor to them, as they're making that move. The same questions for buyers, right? Why are they looking for a home right now? Is your seller going to be a buyer? And then really diving deep, particularly for buyers, like what's important to them? What are they looking for, right? You can find some really excellent templates for these conversations inside of KW Connect and also inside of Command. In the Designs library, there are buyer and seller presentations that have kind of a walkthrough of a needs analysis in it. But here's an example of having a really successful needs analysis. It's the ability to go 3 deep in your questions, right? And here's a great example. If we're talking to a seller, right? Where are you moving? You know, oh, we're relocating for a job. Oh, that's fantastic. How soon do you have to move? Well, my job starts in, 6 weeks, so we have to be there pretty soon. Awesome. Why is it important to you to be making this move? Right? Well, I've been working my way up in this company and this is a huge promotion and it's a great opportunity and I've got family from that town. Awesome. What will that do for you to take advantage of this great opportunity, be closer to your family? Right? Oh, well, then my kids are going to be able to grow up with their cousins and it's going to be, I haven't gotten to see my brothers and sisters in so long, or my parents are there, whatever the case is. That's phenomenal. Ultimately, what does that do for you to be able to have your kids spending more time with their grandparents? Right? It brings us closer together. We're going to be able to have more family holidays and as it is now, my kids barely would recognize their grandparents. They get to see them once a year, maybe if we go on vacation, and now we're all going to be so much closer together. Family's so important to us, right? So we got to the root of it. Family's so important to us, as opposed to, oh yeah, I got a job across the country, right? We've got to go layers deep. We do the same thing when we're working with buyers, right? We're going to go layers deep. What are you looking for in a new home? Oh, you want a large yard. That's awesome. Why is that large yard important to you? Oh, because we have a couple of big dogs. They need some room to run. Oh, that's great. What'll it do for you if your dogs have some room to run? Well, they're not going to be cooped up in the house destroying the furniture anymore. That's for sure, right? They're going to get some more fresh air. That's awesome. Ultimately, what does that do for you? Your dogs are going to have that space of their own, and your house is going to, your couch will be intact for another season, right? Well, maybe that allows them to get another dog. Maybe that allows their kids to go play with the dogs more often. Maybe that means that they're not feeling so hectic after work, having to get the dogs out for a walk, right? Whatever that is, it's almost never just about the big yard. There's a reason for it, right? You could ask a similar question, right? Tell me what a big yard means to you. Because a big yard might be something very different to them than it is to you. Maybe to you, a big yard is a quarter of an acre plot here in the city. And maybe to them, a big yard is 5 acres out in the country, right? So being able to dive deep into what those pieces are. Okay, so think about that. What is your needs analysis process? What are the standards that you have inside of your business? What does that look like when you sit down with a buyer or a seller? Are you using your buyer and seller presentations as a guide to make sure that you're diving deep into those needs analyses? Seek agreement and look for a win-win. I love this exercise here, right? This buyer agent. Says, I have an agent assisting me buying my house. When we hired her, she promised all kinds of things. And after closing, she disappeared. She would not answer my calls or return my emails. It made us feel like she was only there to get her commission. She told us she was an A-class agent. Is the buyer's agent supposed to be like this? Right? That's an actual excerpt from somebody who attended that seminar that we've watched some pieces of. This is something that unfortunately will happen, and it happens most commonly when we're using the default or by the seat of our pants approach. right? Here's a great example. And we had it happen at the boutique brokerage that I ran prior to coming over to Keller Williams years ago. We had an agent, and it was part of our value proposition for first-time home buyers. Particularly, we would throw a housewarming party within 6 weeks of you moving into your new house, right? By throwing that party, what we were really doing is giving you a gift card for food, taking care of all of the invitations, and then making a cameo style appearance at the party to kind of say hi, and then we would send thank you cards afterwards, right? So from a customer service standpoint, we were throwing them a housewarming party and making it super easy. We were inviting all of their friends and family. We covered the cost of the food. They could go ahead and order their favorites. It made it really easy. We got to show up so that we could meet some of their folks in person, and then we would send that thank you card at the end. It was something that that was prominent in our listing presentations. It was something that we spoke about with our clients. And it was something that unfortunately with one of our agents didn't happen for a series of clients. She ended up getting busier than she'd ever been. And the ball got dropped on holding not one, but 3 housewarming parties for our clients. And we didn't find out about it until one of those people several months later actually reached out to us and said, yeah, we were going to hold a housewarming party, but you guys never followed up with us to find out when that was going to happen. Right. So these are clients who were then no longer interested in being repeat or referral business because we told them we would do something and then we never followed up on it. Right. And so it can definitely happen when you get yourself over inundated with business and you don't have strong systems on the back end to support that. So definitely something that you want to be able to keep abreast is what happens even after the transaction. And are you continuing to live up to your promises, to your expectations, right? But when you're seeking agreement and looking for that win-win, it's really important at this point that you look for alignment in both your expectations and the client's expectations, and that you're only agreeing to things that you believe you can commit to, right? It may be something where a client has, a really high need for something. Let's use open houses, for example. Perhaps it's part of your service standards to do 1 open house a month for listings, or do an open house the first weekend it's on the market, but not subsequent open houses, right? You may then have a seller who insists on having an open house every single weekend. Well, is that something that you're able to commit to, right? And if you're not going to commit to that, set that expectation up front, right? Mr. Seller, we've found that open houses during the first weekend can be a significant source of traffic and will help us market your home effectively for sale. Subsequent open houses, however, we found typically just displace the seller and allow opportunities for the real estate agent holding the open house to obtain more buyers, but they have not statistically shown to bring a buyer that will purchase your house. So let's save you the headache of having to leave for an entire Saturday afternoon only to help grow the real estate agent's business, but not actually find a buyer for your house. And instead, we'll market it appropriately on all of these other channels that have been proven to show success, right? If that's your value proposition, can you share that with the client in such a way where you're not just blindly agreeing to whatever their expectations are, because then you can really be setting yourself up to miss the mark on delivering on those expectations, right? So seek that agreement, get their buy-in. If they are looking for daily communication, right? And you know that you're not able to provide daily communication, or that it may not always be appropriate to have daily communication, share that with them, right? My experience is that, there are certain points through the real estate transaction where things will be moving fast, and naturally we'll be speaking on a daily basis or even more during those points. But then there are some times where things are happening in the background that don't necessarily generate much activity for days at a time. And during these kind of lulls inside of the activity, how about we touch base, once or twice a week per that standard plan, as opposed to every day, right? Awesome. So this piece of your system is fairly straightforward, right? Have your expectations set so that you can deliver those, and your standards set so you can deliver those to the client, communicate those appropriately inside of the transaction, and then deliver on that next part. And that's what we're going to talk about next, is how do you set yourself up for success by serving the client and actually delivering what you told them they can expect from you. So awesome. What did you guys take away from that? Any big ahas on setting the expectation before we move on to the next chapter?
I fell a little behind on this just recently. I'm working with a whole family, and the father doesn't speak the same language as I do. So I'm working through the children, and they wanted to put an offer on the house. And I explained everything to the daughter, but then it didn't get signed correctly. And the son and I were talking, and I told him, but then 3 hours later, I got a message from the daughter saying, "Hey, did we get the offer in?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, there's a breakdown here." So we had to start all over again. And I, making sure, okay, now we're on a group text. We're going to be on group emails so that everybody's on the same page. Because I didn't want that to translate once we got under contract. And I explained to them how our communication needs to really be dialed in, so that we don't miss any deadlines or anything, and cause any transaction undue stress due to lack of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. I love that idea too. Make sure all the parties are there in group message, right? Group text, group email, to keep everyone dialed in and on the same page. Yeah, absolutely. What else? You guys are feeling it. I know you are. We had a conversation about it this morning. We have a morning huddle when the team here at the office starts our day. And we're all feeling just like I can tell you guys are, with your cameras off and your microphones off, right? There's this feeling of like distraction and kind of impatience, right? With everything that's going on right now. And you're not alone. Stick with me. This is so important for your business. And I love that y'all are here today, diving into it. Let's talk about what happens next. Delivering that 5-star experience. How do we serve? How do we actually hit those expectations, those standards that we just set, right? Obviously, your integrity is challenged every time you fail to deliver on what you said you will do, even in small pieces, right? It's that if we go back to that first customer experience session, I don't know how many of you guys were in that, but there was the letter from the listing agent or from the seller who canceled their listing because all of the little things started to add up, right? You told me the sign would be here today and it didn't make it. You told me photography would be here and it didn't happen. You told me this communication would happen and that phone call was late. Nobody responded to my email. And these little things just start to really add up, right? And the truth is, people conduct business with people they trust. And so every single misstep eats away at that trust that they have for you. And what happens is they'll take you off of the list of somebody that they want to refer. Right? They'll be sitting at Thanksgiving dinner talking about the new home they bought. And if somebody says, oh yeah, who is your agent? I'm looking to buy a home. They may say something like, yeah, I don't know that we'd work with her again. Right? Instead of, oh my gosh, she was amazing. Right? She brought me these hot chocolate bombs for a closing gift. It was incredible. Oh gosh. So here's the reality. You need to have standards in your business, standards about the way you operate, right? It's so interesting. When we work for other people, we tend to not have a problem upholding their standards. But when we work for ourselves, I don't know if you've ever been victim to this, but I am an expert negotiations expert, right? I am an expert at negotiations, particularly with myself, especially when that alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning because I have to go to the gym, right? Like 100% I will win that conversation. I will either get out of bed or I won't, right? And so I will negotiate with myself. And sometimes I will negotiate with myself about my standards, right? Because, oh, I'm just so busy, right? Oh, I've just got so many things going on. Oh, it doesn't matter that much. No, if you decide that this is your standard in business, then you really need to uphold that yourself, because that's what your clients are in business with you for. It's the standards that you represent, not necessarily the opportunity to do business with you. And we see this all of the time when people get into the team setting inside of real estate, right? It's about the standards they represent, not the individuals themselves. Here's what happens, right? On the left, we see what typically happens when you start doing a lot more business and you don't have the standards and systems around how you're going to execute it. The more business you get, the lower your level of service, because you're unable to execute at that super high level because of volume and a lack of systems. So every transaction gets a different level of service based on the bandwidth you have to provide for it, right? Over time, what happens in this is it depletes your ability to gain repeat and referral business, which means you have to work even harder for new business, and it perpetuates this cycle. It's almost like you can't get ahead, right? You can't get caught up enough to actually take good care of somebody because you're so busy trying to find that new business. Or you have to pump the brakes and hard stop on getting new business so that you can put the standards in place to be able to serve that business at a really high level. And that's what we see on the right. Okay. When you have systems in place that you're able to execute at scale, or you're able to have leverage execute, right? You can have a transaction coordinator who's serving your clients at as high or a higher level than you are, right? You're working with an administrative assistant who's providing client care at a level as high or higher than you are. You hire a showing assistant who's showing homes at a level as well or better than you do, right? Your service level is able to maintain consistency, and then you're able to actually add scale. And because your system is duplicable and you have a clear standard of how to win in that system, you're able to duplicate that over time, garner more repeat and referral business, which means you don't have to work as hard to get new business. You work harder inside of the transaction, upholding those standards and delivering on the expectations that you set, but you don't have to work as hard getting new business because you'll get more repeat and referral business. So that's kind of the cycle there. So have standards, right? Enforce them in your business is the next step. So here's some communication standards that you should consider in your business. And so definitely add your own suggestions in your notes, like what are some standards that you have? But here's some to start with, right? Tell them what you're going to do. right? Provide peace of mind. Remember, that's what our clients are looking for. That's what they've hired us for, is peace of mind. So let them know what you're going to do. Hey, I'm going to get off the phone with you and I'm going to contact the appraisal management company, and we're going to find out exactly when the appraiser is going to be out, and then I will get back to you and let you know, right? Ask great questions. Right? If somebody called and said, hey, when's that appraisal going to be scheduled? Awesome. I haven't heard from the appraisal management company yet. Is it important to you that the appraisal is scheduled at a certain time? Right? Oh yeah, I've got this day off coming up and I was going to start packing, right? And I'd love to have the appraiser here before I did that, or, whatever the case is, get to the bottom of it so that you can really serve that expectation. Communicate weekly when something significant happens, right? Or more, based on whatever you've set up, whatever that cadence of communication is with your clients, right? Communicate with them appropriately and when something significant happens, but keep them informed. There's that old adage, right? No news is good news. Nope, not for your clients. No news is sleepless nights, right? No news is wondering what fires you're putting out behind the scenes. No news is wondering if that buyer's loan is still good. No news is wondering if they're going to be able to move in on time to their house next week, or if they're going to be homeless, right? No news gets their imagination running. And so let them know what's going on, even if it's nothing at all, right? Hey, I just wanted to call and let you know that everything's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing right now. The loan is processing, the appraisal is in, the buyers are going through their conditions. There's nothing for you guys to expect happening at the house this week, right? We're kind of in that quiet phase. Closing's going to be scheduled for next Tuesday, like originally planned. Right now, all systems are still a go. We're just waiting. Wanted to check in and let you know everything was okay. Right? That'll go a long way to helping your clients have a little more peace of mind, right? And never put off bad news. Get it over with quickly and move on to problem solving. I threw an asterisk on here because in my experience, there are some fires that our clients never need to know we put out, right? So there really is a fine line between never putting off bad news and not notifying our clients of every single little hiccup, because we don't want to instill fear, right? However, I would say it's important to have all of the information about a hiccup to make the decision as to whether or not you need to bring the clients in on that now, or you can bring them in on it later, The lender calls and says, your buyers have come up with some, underwriting conditions, and I just haven't heard back from them yet, right? Is that a time to reach out? Oh, probably allow the buyers some time to get back to the lender to fulfill that condition before you go to the sellers and say, oh my gosh, the buyers have this condition, right? It's probably nothing. You probably don't have to worry about it. And I wanted to let you know, right? What are they going to do? They're going to worry about it. They're not going to sleep that night, right? And then the next day you're going to call and say, you know what? I was right. You didn't have to worry about it. It was totally fine. They sent all the paperwork they needed. Everything's good. Right? So sometimes there's a fine line inside of that. Yet if there's anything that you feel isn't going to very quickly resolve, or could indeed be very impactful to the transaction, then don't hesitate to reach out. And if you need to get your client involved in something right away, then make sure you get them involved. Time is usually of the essence inside of a real estate transaction anyhow. So let's make sure that we move forward with some of those pieces. Have some standards around your response times. And it is okay to set some expectations around it, right? So what is your standard response time, right? If if you have a client calling you, what's that like? And then what are your expectations around that? There's varying schools of thought on this. I don't think that anything is right or wrong. I think that you want to set an expectation with your client and then deliver on that expectation, right? If your expectation is that I'm available every day from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., then that's the expectation. Okay, every day from 9 to 7, you're answering your phone, returning calls or text messages. If the expectation that you set with your clients is I'm available every day from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., except if I'm face-to-face with another client. Just like when I'm face-to-face with you, I'm going to leave my cell phone in my bag and not answer it because I want to give you the full attention you deserve. If I'm face-to-face with another client, I will not be able to answer, and yet I'll return your call as soon as I'm able inside of that. And then respect that and do not pull out your phone in their presence. Right? If you set that expectation that you're going to return their call after you're done being face-to-face, then don't interrupt your face-to-face time by taking another call. The flip side of that coin is some agents are always cell phone in hand. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand that this is incredibly important, and you'll respect that whenever you need me, I will step away from what I'm doing to be able to answer your call, which means as we're face to face today, if my phone rings, I may need to step away to take that call. Right? There's no right or wrong there. It's how do you want to operate, right? Set that expectation of what your response time is. There's a bold law that says you teach others how to treat you. And when you violate your own expectations, you're teaching others that they're allowed to violate your expectations too, right? This is especially pertinent with communication expectations. If you tell your clients that you're just not available after 7 p.m. because that's your family time and I'm only available by appointment on Sunday, and you start texting them back at 10 o'clock at night or say things like, yeah, we can just go out all day on Sunday. That's fine, right? What you've just taught them is that you don't have standards around your time, and the expectation is they can reach you always, right? So remember that it works both ways, and honor your expectations by protecting your time. Also in communication, right? How is your message received? Right? It's the words you use, it's your tone of voice, it's your body language, but it's also whether or not that's written or verbal communication, right? And making sure that you're choosing the right communication for your client and for the situation, right? Something that requires urgent, time-sensitive response may warrant a phone call as opposed to an email, right? So keeping those things in mind, and how we respond, right? When we respond to a thank you by saying, oh, no problem, what we just did was evoke the feeling that helping you is not a problem because it's my job, right? It's not a good thing. It's just not a problem, right? A simple "you're welcome" doesn't really evoke anything. That's kind of the conditioned response, right? But we've seen this fast food giant create an entire culture with the words "my pleasure," right? Because it evokes an emotional response. Oh, they enjoyed helping me. That was fantastic. But remember, it has to go with those other pieces as well. It has to have the right body language and the right tone of voice. Because I think we've all been to Chick-fil-A that one time on that super busy day when all of the things have gone wrong, and that "my pleasure" did not sound like it was their pleasure, right? And so we've got to be cognizant of that. Have the right mindset and know that we have standards around our images as well. Maintaining a professional look, either personally, right? or for your brand. This is really important. What do your marketing materials look like? What are you showing up at a listing presentation with? Is this a professional presentation for your brand? You know, is your logo the same? Does it look consistent? Are you representing with the image quality standards that you would like, right? Remember, in our profession, our workplace is not just our office. Okay. It's also our cars. It can be our work bag, right? I have the big bag that everything's in, right? Your presentation's in there, my laptop's in there, and all of that. So if I open that up at a listing appointment to pull out my laptop and your presentation, and you get a peek inside of this hot mess of a bag, right? What does that do for my presentation, for my image, right? And it's also your team, right? Who are the vendors that you're recommending? What's happening when that photographer or the stager goes over to the house, right? When they're having the home inspection, right? Is your home inspector professional, wearing a uniform or a logoed, polo shirt, or are they showing up in jeans and a beer t-shirt and their butt cracks hanging out while they're checking under the sink, right? What's happening? What's that experience? Because here's the thing, your clients aren't going to remember that home inspector's name, but they're going to tie that experience to working with you, right? Your title company, the lenders, all of the people in your team, are they meeting your standards, right? Are they delivering? And then obviously you have to be able to enforce your standards, right? With yourself and with the others on your team. And the first is to make sure that they're well defined. What are your standards? So those are some guidelines to look at. Here's some examples of others that you may want to consider, right? This would go into communication, and this is a phenomenal best practice. Never hang up the phone without letting the client know what's happening next. Right? That ties in very well with let the client know what you're doing. Right? Coming up next, your file is going to be sent into underwriting. You might start hearing from somebody from the lender's office asking for all of the things that you submitted with your initial application. I promise it's not because they're incompetent or your original documents were no good. They oftentimes request new or updated documents during the process. And here's what to expect. So, so I will be in touch with you here within the next few days to find out how it went talking to the underwriter, right? Or whatever the next step is. Remember, we want to eliminate those sleepless nights and provide peace of mind. And if they know what's coming next and when they're going to hear from you again, it also helps to eliminate those incoming calls and texts, right? If I let you know that I'm going to reach out to you in a couple of days to see that you heard from the underwriter, right? Then if I have a small inquiry and, the next day that doesn't need an urgent answer, as a client, I may withhold that phone call and just talk to you about it, the following day because you told me you were going to call. Right? So now I'm not reaching out to you for every little thing because I know you're going to be reaching back to me soon. Especially when there are deadlines involved or tight timelines, right? Make sure that you're letting the client know what's going to happen next. Other standards, asking buyers for feedback on every showing, right? We get that showing feedback, right? And maybe it's just me, because I've certainly been guilty of this, where I'm filling out that showing feedback for the listing agent and I'm like, oh, my buyers didn't really like that house, but I don't have any feedback. What was it about that house? We didn't really have a conversation. They were just a no, right? So what's the feedback? Can you learn from that, right? Can you create that experience? With sellers, or even with buyers, especially when they're going through that kind of slow, quiet period in the transaction, do you have maybe a standard day You know, I reach out to all of my sellers on Tuesday. I'll give you an update on what's happened over the weekend with showings. I'll give you an update on where we're at in the market, any solds, any under contracts, any pricing updates, so that we can start putting together the plan for the following weekend if we need to make any changes, right? Obviously, if there's any incoming offers on the property, you'll hear from me prior to Tuesday. Right? So something like that. Are you setting up that standard time? Deliver on those expectations by leveraging technology, right? Are you using particularly the command opportunities in conjunction with the mobile app? Okay, if you're not aware of how those two work together, then reach out to Amy ASAP, or check it out on your Connect app. So it will allow you to have a really seamless communication flow, and you can even have client updates right there in the app as they're moving through the transaction. So these are some phenomenal tools that you can use together inside of your business to allow yourself some phenomenal leverage, particularly in the communication standpoint, right? And making sure that you're leveraging your people, right? Your team and your vendors for support during the transaction as well. Are you having these conversations with your vendors about what your clients are, or what your standards are prior to hiring them? You know, this is a great opportunity for your home stager or your photographer or whoever it is to sit down with them and say, hey, you know, I'd love to do business with you. Here's my expectations of how this looks, right? When you get into the seller's home, I expect that you're, you know, removing your shoes every time, and, you know, that you're adjusting the blinds as appropriate and helping the seller with any last minute pieces to get ready, or whatever your expectations are, right? And you're having that conversation with your vendors. So, I know this section's kind of faster, and it moves pretty quick, but do make sure, and if you're using the your customer experience system templates that went out with the first class that we did, I'll include them in the materials when this one goes out as well. You have a spot inside of your standards checklist to be able to add what are your standards, and it has some prompts in there so that you're making sure you're catching all of the different areas inside of your transaction, and everything that we talked about today, your communication standards, your image standards, what happens with technology, what happens with your vendors, right? So that you can walk through those pieces. So that's your homework as you're setting up these pieces of your customer experience system. What are your expectations and standards? And are you slowing down enough inside of your buyer and seller consultations to go 3 deep with your questions and to come to a win-win agreement on your standards? And then are you delivering them each and every time? So, any questions or ahas before we wrap up today?
Well, the last time we went through this, what, last year? I did learn something as far as standards for myself, and that is I'll tell my clients, I take calls until 7 o'clock. If you happen to call sometimes at 8:30 and I answer, yay for you. But I typically stop at 7. You're always welcome to text me at any time because I will turn my phone off after 7, and I may or may not reply that night, but at least I'll know what's on your mind and I can reply to you first thing in the morning. So just setting that standard that, yeah, sometimes I do work later and you may get an answer for me, but don't expect it after this time.
Right. That's the exception, not the rule. Yeah.
Exactly. So just giving that leeway, because I notice sometimes it'll be 8:30 and I'm like on my phone and I'm still working and I'm okay with it, but I just don't want them to expect that.
Yep, absolutely. That's a great way to set that expectation too, right? Yeah, love that. Love that. And thank you for sharing that too. Awesome, guys. Next week, we're going to get into, we're going to have some fun. We're going to get into surveys. Okay. Just kind of a sneak peek of what that is. This isn't just the end of the transaction survey. This is how to actually ask the right questions throughout the transaction so that you're accurately gauging how well you're delivering your customer experience. So you're going to actually survey your client throughout the transaction, as well as at the end, and get those client testimonials. But this is a great way to help you stay on track and ward off any potential pitfalls or negative reviews that might come as a result of maybe a missed expectation or a missed communication. So, so we're, I think we're at the same time next Thursday. So we'll see you guys then. Have a good weekend.